Allophones versus phonemes. What's the difference? Phonemes, a class of speech sounds identified by native speaker as the same sound, a mental entity related to various allophones by phonological rules, meaningfully distinct sounds. So the easy definition here is meaningfully distinct sounds. If you take one phoneme and substitute it for another in a minimal pair, if it changes the meaning of the word, then yes, these are separate phonemes. To understand more about the idea of separate phonemes, let's take a look at two examples, English and Sindhi. So in English we have the C, the CH, and the J. We call these the C hat check and the J hat check. So are these two sounds separate phonemes, right? How do you know? So if you look at the word cheap, right? So if you transcribe it, it's going to look like this. So you can see it written like that. And then we have Jeep, which is transcribed like this. Let me copy this. So if you look at these two, here's what we can say. We can say that these are examples of minimal pairs. So a minimal pair basically is a pair of words with the same number of sounds that differ only in one sound in the same position. In this case, we have three sounds here, three sounds here. The difference is the initial consonant position, the CH and the J, that sound. So these are separate phonemes because if you substitute the one sound for the other, it changes the meaning of the words from cheap to Jeep. So yes, the C and the J hat checks are separate phonemes. Okay, let's take a look at Sindhi from India, Pakistan language. So we have, I'm going to make this more the aspirated sound here. So we have panu, which means leaf. We have panu, which means snakehood. So the question is, are the P and the aspirated P separate phonemes in Sindhi? And the answer again is yes. Indeed they are, because you have to look at the transcription here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 sounds in the first word, 4 sounds in the second. And the only difference is the initial consonant sound, either the P or the aspirated P, and when you substitute the one sound for the other, it does change the meaning of the word from leaf to snakehood. So that's the general idea about what we call separate phonemes. So if you substitute the one phoneme for the other, if it does change the meaning of the word in a minimal pair, then those are separate phonemes. Allophones are non-distinctive realizations of the same phoneme. So that is the key difference between allophones and phonemes. Phonemes are meaningful distinctive sounds, and then allophones are not. They're basically a non-distinctive realization of the same phoneme. To understand allophones, let's go back to the example I just talked about, Sindhi. So you have banu, panu. Right? So we know in this language we have the unaspirated and the aspirated P, and it seems to be meaningfully distinctive because these minimal pairs change in meaning from leaf to snakehood. Now let's take a look at English. English also has a unaspirated and aspirated P sound. So you have pit, 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 right? So usually when the P's in an initial position, it's aspirated more, as in this word, pit. Now notice how when the P comes after a consonant sound, it's unaspirated. We have spit, spit. so it doesn't have nearly as much air. Now the question is the aspirated and the unaspirated P separate phonemes, or are they allophones of the same phoneme P? In this case, we're going to say that the aspirated P are allophones of the same phoneme. So how do we know this? So if we substitute the one sound for the other, if you go bit, bit, or you go spit, spit, if you substitute this sound for this sound and you interchange them, the meaning of these words don't change. They still stay the same. Now, it might be a little off to native speakers. Where are you from? Why aren't you pronouncing that P clearly? But it wouldn't change the meaning of the word, not like it does here, not like in this example here. So the unaspirated and the aspirated P in English are actually allophones of the same phoneme. On the other hand, the unaspirated and the aspirated P in Sindhi are actually separate phonemes because they are meaningfully distinctive. So you have to consider that different language systems are going to operate differently, and what might be a phoneme in one language may actually be an allophone in another, and vice versa. Let's take a look to illustrate a little bit more about allophones. We have a language, Igbira, in Nigerian. We have two vowel sounds. We have the little e and the typewriter a, right? So we have mezi, which means expect. We have mazi, which means I am in pain. So the question is, are the little e and the typewriter a allophones of the same phoneme or separate phonemes? It says be explicit in your response, right? So in this case, we could say something like this. The little e and the typewriter a are actually separate phonemes because a minimal pair can be created with the two sounds. Notice we have four sounds, 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 here. And in that second position, if we substitute the one vowel for the other, it does indeed change the meaning of those words. So in this case, we have what are called separate phonemes. So that's the general idea. To conclude this short lesson, separate phonemes are meaningfully distinctive, and they will change the meaning of the words they attach to when creating minimal pairs. Allophones do not change the meaning of the words that they attach to in minimal pairs. So allophones are not considered separate phonemes because they're not meaningfully distinctive.